All right, so this may very well be the way that things are until trade deadline day, where I'd have the news of the day at the start and then a news of the day at the end, because there's going to be a lot of little things going on that I'm not going to do just a video on specifically, but they justify being in a video. Louis Domingue put on waivers today by New Jersey. This was announced around the same time as I did my video stating, hey, they're looking to trade him. Here's why. So you're a team looking to acquire Louis Domingue. You call up New Jersey and you say, hey, we're looking at adding some depth. But while we like Louis, he's not a top two guy and we'd like to put him in the minors. New Jersey says, all right, we'll make the deal. What we'll do is we will put him on waivers today. And then tomorrow, after he clears, you can take him. You don't have to put him on waivers again because he already cleared waivers. And then you can send him to the American Hockey League. That is why Louis Domingue likely gets traded tomorrow after clearing waivers. At the very least, it means that the New Jersey Devils are in better position to trade him because he will have already cleared waivers. As a team, you don't have to worry about doing it again. Golubev being on waivers for Ottawa may be a similar situation. So, again, when you see a guy on waivers this close to the trade deadline, this is part of the reason why that happens. Now, speaking of guys who've gone through waivers, today there was a minor deal between Montreal and Pittsburgh. I wasn't going to do a video specifically on this, where Joseph Blandisi and Jake Lucchini get moved to Montreal in exchange for Phil Varone and Riley Barber. Barber is not like the other three. So I guess they ran out of Italian-sounding names that they could put into this deal, and Barber gets thrown in. And again, Varone, he can come up and play. He can play spot duty here and there. So Pittsburgh just looking for that depth they can call up from the AHL. Blandisi's pretty good too. I guess they wanted to switch out from Blandisi. It's not a big deal in any way, shape, or form. So minor deal. Works for both GMs. It's an American Hockey League deal. Jamie Benn, no suspension or further, and I'm surprised there's not even a fine. What apparently has happened is that NHL Department of Player Safety saw the incident between he and Oliver Ekman-Larsson last night as being a 50-50, where he's playing for the puck and he does hit the player, but it's still, there was some hockey play to it. They agreed that 5 in a game made sense, and they felt that was what his punishment should be, and there shouldn't be anything further. So does that mean that if they had missed that on the play, he would have got a game today? There's your question, right? And then if it's... Anyways. So, Jamie Benn, no suspension for him or discipline. So, we'll see how things go from here the next time that Arizona and Dallas meet each other, which I'm pretty sure is next season, unless they meet in the playoffs. Connor McDavid's traveling with the Oilers, so he will be with the team. There's no word on exactly when he's coming back, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that long. But the Oilers are surviving. They are 3-1-1 without McDavid. So the Oilers are doing all right. And for anybody who's want to say, hey, see, Draisaitl can drive a line and drive a team. There's videos I did last year where I talked about Draisaitl, and I talked about how I didn't think that he was as... he didn't lean on McDavid as much as people seem to think he did, and I thought he was a pretty excellent player in his own right. So I've been on that side for a while and believing in Draisaitl for a while. And so I'm glad to see that Draisaitl's proving himself. And now people are talking about him as Art Ross and Hart contender. Interestingly enough, if he did win the Hart Trophy with currently he's sporting a -12 overall, he would be the first ever Hart winner with a minus rating in the plus-minus category. Another minor deal today, and this is as minor as you can get. Anthony Grieco goes from Florida to Tampa in exchange for Danik Martel going to the Florida Panthers. Again, this is an American Hockey League deal. You're going to see these trades, and because of the time of year it is, there's going to be some fans that go, hey, how does this change things? It doesn't. It doesn't. So, yeah, this is just one of those Martel for Grieco. Grieco should have been sent to Montreal. I mean, come on, you have Lucchini and Blandisi and Grieco, and we put together quite the team here. Minor deal there. Ryan Ellis could return tomorrow for the Nashville Predators. Nashville, a team that earlier today I did the video on how I felt that certain teams were hurt by certain things, and I think injuries have hurt Nashville. And I mentioned Ellis, but I also mentioned Arvidsson. Arvidsson, I don't think has been 100% all year. You look at his numbers, you look at how much time he missed. And there are other players on the team that just, it feels off. It just feels like there's some players that are nursing injuries, and so we'll see how Nashville does if Ellis comes back. They are still projected to make the playoffs when you look at playoff probabilities because of the fact that they have those games in hand on Arizona. Their schedule is not overly difficult, comparatively speaking, with other teams they're competing with for playoff spots. They are favored to get a playoff spot, so we'll see what happens there. Good news for the LA Kings. Gabriel Velarde is set to make his NHL debut tonight. I'm actually quite happy about that as well. I like Velarde a lot. Of course, a lot was made of me at the 2017 draft when I did the draft live stream. And I was kind of disappointed the Canucks didn't take Velarde and they took Pettersson. Of course, that became this big thing. Can't believe he wants Velarde. And I kept saying, well, Shannon, what does he know? Velarde's a bust. No, Velarde was hurt. The whole bust thing and injuries, those are separate. They are absolutely separate things. So Velarde, hopefully, he's on his way to a solid NHL career after missing about a year and a half of hockey. So very glad to see he's making his debut tonight. At least he's supposed to. And that's good news for the Kings. They need some good news up front and a guy who can potentially score points. Velarde could end up being that guy. That would be kind of nice. And I'm waiting. One of the reasons that this video is going up as late as it is, hockey starts in about 20 minutes. I'm waiting on a Simmonds trade. There's too much smoke out there, right? Like every day it's the Canucks are in contact, and it's from everywhere. Everybody's saying it. So I'm just waiting for Simmonds to end up going to Vancouver. You'll notice it's not the New Jersey logo that I had there. New Jersey's logo's up there with Domingue. That I've got Vancouver's right next to him, because that seems to be the place where he's going, which means he'll end up going to Arizona, or he'll go to maybe Edmonton or Calgary, or he'll go somewhere else. One of the things with the Toffoli deal is you've got to wonder in the back of your mind. So Toffoli had been linked to the Flames a lot. Does Jim Benning look and go, well, we're competing with the Flames. If we can keep Toffoli away from the Flames, we're better off, and then we can improve ourselves at the same time? That's something you have to think of at this time of year. So with Simmonds and all these ties to the Canucks, does somebody else in their division, somebody else in their sphere, who wants to knock them out of that playoff spot and sees them as a challenge, do one of those teams come forward and go, hey, we've got a deal we can offer New Jersey for Wayne Simmonds? And it is that time of year. I will agree with something, too, that I heard Brian Burke saying today, that the trade deadline reminds him, and I've heard him say this before, of the old blue light specials at Kmart. And he said you'd see, and you see this, too, like here locally. They're opening a Freshco, and the first 500 customers get, I think it's like free butter, something like that. It's something, so there's a lineup like for 3 blocks. It looks like there's this huge, massive lineup for a store opening, that it's a store opening. And I've always found that weird. And the trade deadline's kind of like that. That you've got a player that maybe in October, November, might have been available. You might get a call on once in a while. A week before deadline, you got 6 or 7 GMs fighting over the guy, and suddenly the price goes up. So, and I think sometimes we overhype players who may be available, and maybe expect a little bit too much out of a team after they make acquisitions. For instance, the Toffoli deal with Vancouver. I don't see Vancouver as a cup contender with Toffoli. I just think adding a 20-goal scorer is okay. Was the price that Tampa paid to get Coleman, was it steep? Yep. That's also market value. So that's where we're at. And could we very well see buyer's remorse after the trade deadline? Yes. And that's a video that at some point this summer we need to take a look at. Just the trade deadline every year. I want to look back like 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 years at the trade deadline and come up with some sort of a stat where we can say these teams have regretted their deals the most, or should regret their deals the most. Teams that give up a lot of futures for short-term fixes that don't work, rentals that don't work, that kind of thing. And teams that stand pat at the deadline, and actually it works out just fine for them. We're going to see players being traded for too much. And there are going to be those minor deals that we don't talk about, like a couple on the board here. Minor deals that don't look like anything major. And maybe Veroni ends up coming up and playing for Pittsburgh in the playoffs. Maybe he gets a game-winning goal in Game 5 in overtime, something like that. And then suddenly we say, hey, that was a nothing deal at the deadline, and it turned out to be pretty good. So, again, not every trade gets its own video, but not every trade that gets its own video ends up making a sizable shift when it comes to which teams are going to be contenders. I don't think right now that anybody has moved that needle so that they are a contender that weren't because of a deadline deal. And we'll see whether or not that happens between now and Monday, on Monday. And in June, we'll know who actually won the whole season with that Silver Cup. And like Burke always likes to say, and I agree with him on this, they only award one Stanley Cup. And at the deadline, there are GMs who are trying just to get their teams into the playoffs. And that is, and I agree, it's kind of weird that you're just trying to make the playoffs and you're aware you're probably not going to win in the playoffs. And yet I kind of understand why they do it. In this day and age with the amount of parity in the NHL, just make it to the dance, make it to the playoffs, and anything's possible. So I see both sides. I do think there's general managers who are overpaying at this time of year. I also think there are players who generate all kinds of interest that during most of the rest of the year would generate none. But that's kind of the fun thing about the trade deadline. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.